Zero, one. Let's get started.
Hey, welcome back to the Reinvention Room. I'm glad you're here. Today, we're talking about something that shows up in almost every version of the story I hear from people who are trying to change their lives. And this is quite sneaky. It's quiet, and it's actually a habit of making yourself smaller than you actually are. We're calling this one taking up space. And I really want to be clear from the start. This isn't about being loud or demanding or difficult. This is about something much more basic. It's about whether you believe you're allowed to exist fully in your own life without apologizing for it. Here's something I want you to notice this week, starting today. Notice how many times you make yourself smaller in a room. Not physically smaller, although sometimes that too. I mean smaller in ways that don't show up on a camera. Like the opinion that you don't share because someone might disagree, or the idea you don't pitch because it might get shot down. The need you don't mention because you don't want to seem like too much, too needy. The joy that you don't let yourself fully feel because someone else in the room is having a bad day. We do this often and so automatically that most of us don't even register that we're actually making a choice. It just feels like we're being polite, we're being easy, low maintenance. And I want you to really sit with this word, agreeable. Agreeable is a word we've been taught to treat like a virtue. And in small doses, sure, it's just called being kind, right? But when agreeable becomes your whole operating system, when it becomes the thing you reach for instead of your own actual opinion, your actual need, your actual no, that's not kindness anymore. That's disappearance. Think of it think of it like this. Imagine a houseplant that keeps getting moved to a darker corner of the room over and over because someone else needs the sunny spot for something. One move, the plant survives fine. But move after move after move after move, and eventually that plant stops growing towards the light altogether. It adapts to the dark. It learns to expect less. And here's the sad part. From the outside, it might still look like it's doing okay, but it's not. It's just smaller than what it was built to be. But it's not dead, right? A lot of us have been quietly moved to the dark corner of our lives, and not by one dramatic event. It's usually by hundreds and hundreds of small ones. A parent who needed you to be easy. A relationship where your needs took a back seat so things could stay smooth. A job where speaking up got you labeled as difficult once, so you never did it again. A friendship where you learned that your excitement was a little too much for the room, so you learned to dim it before anyone else could. And slowly, without even deciding to, you learn the lesson taking up less space keeps the peace. And I want to talk a minute about where this actually comes from, because I don't think people do this because they're weak or because they lack confidence in some abstract sense. I think people do this because it worked. Shrinking is a strategy. It's a really effective one. in short term. If you take up less space, you create less friction, right? And less friction means less conflict. Less conflict means in that moment, you feel safer. So your nervous system files that away as a win. Good job. We've avoided a blow up. Do that again next time. It's actually kind of smart, right? But the problem is that the strategy that keeps you safe in a single moment can become the cage that keeps you small for years. Because your nervous system isn't thinking about your whole life, it's thinking about right now, this moment. It doesn't know that the tiny sacrifice you made today, biting your tongue, shrinking your dream down to something more realistic, that someone else's comfort matter more than your own truth, is going to compound. It doesn't know that 10 years of small shrinking adds up to a person who doesn't recognize her own voice anymore. This is worth naming clearly. You didn't shrink because something is wrong with you. You shrank because somewhere along the way, shrinking was the smartest available option. That doesn't mean it's still the right one now. Okay, so let's talk about what actually I mean by taking up space. Because different people have different versions, and you just want to make it clear. I think this phrase gets misunderstood a lot. So, taking up space does not mean becoming someone who never considered other people. It doesn't mean bulldozing a room, taking over people, treating every interaction like competition for airtime. That's not expansion. That's just a different kind of smallness, honestly. It's still coming from a fear-based place, and it's just dressed up louder. It's bullying. Okay? Let's call it for what it is. Real space taking is quieter than that, and it's quieter than most people think. It looks like this: saying, actually, I disagree in a meeting, letting yourself want something big out loud before you're fully justified why you deserve it, sitting in a room and letting your face show what you're actually feeling instead of performing whatever expression keeps things comfortable for everyone else, asking for what you need directly instead of hoping someone will notice and offer it to you so you never have to risk asking. Believing that your time, your rest, your creative work, your ideas are not the first things that get cut when someone needs something from you or when something needs to give. It's the difference between a tree that's been pruned by someone else's hands its whole life, shaped into a neat little hedge, versus a tree that's been left alone to grow into whatever shape it was actually built for. Both are still trees, but one of them is living out someone else's design, and the other one is just being what it is. Now, if you're someone who spent years shrinking, and I know what that feels like because I have done it, I need to tell you something important because I don't want you to be blindsided by it. When you start taking up space again, guilt is going to show up almost immediately. And it's going to feel like proof that you're doing something wrong. You're not doing something wrong. Guilt, in this context, isn't a moral alarm. It's just your old system doing its job, the same job it's always done, which is keeping things familiar. Guilt loves familiar. It doesn't actually care if familiar is good for you or not. And here's an analogy that I think about a lot. Imagine you've been wearing shoes a half size too small for years. At some point, you get a pair that actually fits. And the first few days, your feet feel strange, almost like something's wrong, even though objectively this is the correct size. This is what your foot actually needed all along. That strangeness isn't information that the new shoes are wrong, right? It's just information that you're not used to comfort yet. You're used to your feet being cramped up in a shoe that doesn't fit. It hurts just thinking about it, right? We've all been there. So taking up space is going to feel like that. Strange before it feels good. Uncomfortable before it feels like relief. And if you interpret that discomfort as a sign to shrink back down, you'll stay in the too small shoes forever because they'll always feel more normal than the ones that actually fit. And I want to say something that might be a little uncomfortable, but I think it's honest. And this show is about honesty over comfort. When you start taking up more space, some people around you are going to be genuinely happy for you. And some people are going to be quietly unsettled by it. Not because they're villains, so let's not villainize them. Usually because your smallness was working for them in some way, even if neither of you ever said that part out loud. Maybe your quietness made someone else feel like the smartest person in the room. Or maybe your constant availability meant someone else never had to build their own coping skills. Maybe your low expectations of yourself meant nobody around you ever had to examine their own choices too closely because you were the comparison point that made them feel fine. Whatever it is, you don't owe anyone your smallness just because it's convenient for them. That's a hard sentence, but I want you to hear it clearly. Their discomfort with your growth is not evidence that your growth is wrong. Sometimes it's just evidence that the relationship was built on a version of you that isn't sustainable anymore, and it's going to have to renegotiate itself. Or it isn't going to survive the new, fuller version of who you're becoming. Both of those outcomes are survivable. What's not survivable long term is staying small to keep everyone else comfortable while you quietly disappear. I don't want to leave you with just a feeling. I want to leave you with something you can actually do. So here are a few small doable ways to start practicing taking up space this week. First, practice one unqualified sentence a day. That means saying something true without immediately following it with, but that's just me. Or, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Or, sorry, this might be a dumb question. Just say the true thing and let it stand there without shrinking it or saying anything else out of your mouth that makes you look small. Just say it. Second, let yourself want something out loud before you've justified it. Instead of, I've been thinking about maybe possibly wanting to try this thing, if it makes sense. Try just saying, I want this. Full stop. That's it. I want this. Period. You can figure out the logistics later. The wanting doesn't need permission first. Try it. Feels good. Third, pay attention to the reflex to apologize for things that really don't require an apology, like taking up a seat, asking a follow-up question, needing a minute to think, having a preference. Notice how often sorry sneaks in where it isn't actually needed. Some sentences don't need an apology attached to it. Fourth, number 4, let one relationship in your life feel a little uncomfortable this week because you stopped shrinking in it. I'm sure one came right to mind. You don't have to blow up anything, okay? Just pick one place where you've been quietly making yourself smaller and take up a little more room there. See what happens. See what you learn about the relationship and about yourself. And here's what I want you to remember. You were not put on this earth. Let's make this a we. We were not put on this earth to take up the smallest possible amount of room. We were not built to be low maintenance at the expense of our own truth. We are allowed to have opinions that inconvenience people. You are allowed to want things before you've earned the right to want them. You are allowed to exist at full volume in your own life. Taking up space isn't selfish. It's just honest. It's just what it looks like when you stop editing yourself down for everyone else's comfort and start living life like your own life actually belongs to you. So this week, take up a little more space. Say the true thing. Want the big thing. Let yourself be seen fully without the apology attached. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you, and fall in love with your life. I'll see you next time in the Reinvention Room.